All right, so this video is going to teach you how to make a gravity car. My guess is if you're watching it, it's because you probably are in school and a teacher's told you have to make a gravity car. For those of you who don't know what a gravity car is, it's got to be a vehicle that you build. Sometimes they'll tell you certain materials you can and can't use, but it's a vehicle that has to be propelled using some sort of weight that's going to pull down. The string is going to go up, wrap back down, and wrap around an axle, and as the weight falls, it turns the axle and moves your car forward. Usually they're going to tell you that you can't use springs. Sometimes they say you can't use Legos. And usually the goal is distance. You're trying to get it to go as far as you can. So there's lots of ways to make a gravity car. The one that we're building today and the one I'm going to show you is one that was designed to go for distance. This particular car actually ended up going, let me pull it up, it was 90 feet, so 27 meters, and it only stopped because it hit a wall at the end of the hallway or it would have gone further. So if your goal is to get a car that goes distance, this is what we're going to do today. So let's talk through some of the materials that you're going to need or in order to build this car. Now, if you can't find these exact materials, you can certainly substitute them with anything else you have. But in order to build this car, this is what we used. So if you look down here, we're going to start with, you're going to want these craft sticks. I mean, they kind of look like you'd see at a doctor's office or a tongue depressor. I think popsicle sticks would probably work as well. You're going to want to find this is a 1/2 inch wood trim piece. You can just buy it at any wood store or a Home Depot or something like that. You're going to need some long wooden dowels, and these dowels are being used to suspend your weight. The higher the weight, the further your car is going to be able to go. In order to attach all those things together, be sure to have some wood glue on hand. For the wheels and the axles, a lot of people have used CDs to do it, and they work really well because they're perfectly circular. They're also very thin, so that's going to reduce friction. There are some challenges with this, and I'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to show you, we also have Pinewood Derby car wheels. Now, you wouldn't want to use these wheels by themselves because they're way too small around, but I'll show you how we used them to attach to the CDs to make it easier to attach to the axle. For the axle itself, you're going to need a steel rod. Get at least 2 or 3 feet and the steel rod. Now, you might be able to substitute that by cutting up a hanger from your closet, but we bought a steel rod from Home Depot. Some other materials that you're probably going to need. I'm guessing you have a glue gun around your house, a hot glue gun. If not, they're $10 on Amazon. Everyone should have a glue gun. You're going to use it for a million different projects anyway, so glue gun is certainly critical. You're going to want some zip ties. So you'll see here where we've used a zip tie here. There's a zip tie tight in other areas. You're going to need some sort of string. Now that string could be fishing line, it could be paracord. I think fishing line is your best option. It's really strong, it's thin, it's going to let you wrap it around the axle a lot of times. You're going to need a pulley. Now, do you have to have a pulley? Maybe not, but the problem is you want that weight to be able to drop easily and for the string to pull through. And if you just tried to do it over a piece of wood, you're going to get a lot of friction. We found these pulleys on Amazon. They were $6 for 2. So if you're building this, I suspect you know someone else who's building one. Maybe you can split the cost and sell the other pulley to them. You're going to need 4 small screw eye hooks. So if you don't know what an eye hook is, that's this metal ring that you see right here. It looks like a screw at one end, and you can literally screw it right into the wood. Make sure that that eye hook is big enough for your axle to fit through. Something else I recommend are these craft beads, and I'll explain in a little bit why we used craft beads. These are literally what you see people who make friendship bracelets with. I suspect if you ask around school, anyone who's making a friendship bracelet probably has these craft beads. You're going to want anywhere from 4 to 12 craft beads. And you can get those at a hobby store. You can probably get them at Michael's or Target, somewhere near where you live. This is optional, and I'll explain why we did it, but while you're making your list of things to buy, this is a 1/2 inch screw. There are 2 washers that fits on the screw, and on the bottom there's a nut that fits that screw. That's really nice because, as you're going to see, it gives you the ability to kind of change the direction of the car. And then you're going to need weights. Now, you're going to need more weight than you think. and you need strong, or not strong, but really compact weight, because you don't want a weight that's going to be running into the tower itself, and you don't want the weight to hang too low. So the tighter and more compact, the better. I think fishing weights are probably going to be your best option. So before we start talking about how we built this car, there's a few things that you're going to want to remember when you build yours, whether you use these materials or something else. You want a thin axle with a big wheel. I'm not going to get into the physics of why that's important, but trust me, the thinner the axle and the bigger the wheel, the further your car is going to go. Again, heavy, compact weight. Make sure when you attach your wheels in the back, you're going to want to make sure those wheels are as straight as possible and that they don't rub on the side of your car. So however you decide to build your car, make sure those wheels aren't going to be hitting it, because if they do, it's going to slow your car down. These things don't go fast. So if they're moving slow and there's any friction, they're going to slow down and come to a stop. So let's talk about actually building the car. So to start, when we built this car, there are 4 wood craft sticks in a square. Just glue those together as a square to start. Using the wood glue, that'll hold it together. It doesn't take that long to dry, and then you'll be able to continue on. The next is you want to build this tower. So the tower itself, in order to do that, you need a way to suspend these dowels. So the best way that I came up with was just to glue 4 of these wood blocks, which is coming from this large stick, cut 4 little pieces, and glue them onto the corners. Next, you drill 2 holes big enough for your dowels, put a little glue in there, and push the dowels down and bring those up to the very top. Once those are in place, you're going to want a cross beam, and that's to suspend your pulley. So take another piece of that 1/4-inch wood, cut it down, drill 2 holes, and slide it down over those dowels, and you can glue that into place. So now you've got a way to suspend your weight up high. In order to attach a pulley, we just used a zip tie. Again, you can get the pulleys online. Just use a zip tie, crank it on there really tight, and that'll be enough to hold your weight. One of my concerns is that this might be a little flimsy, so you're going to want to add some support. So the reason you're putting 4 wood blocks on the corners is the back 2 hold your dowels for the tower, and the front 2 are so you could take a couple craft sticks, we glued those together, and then just glue them to the corners, to the wood block here, and then up here to the tower. Once you've done that, you really have the entire basis for your car. You've got the frame, you've got a tower, and you've got a little bit of support. The complicated part is really working on your wheels and your axles, trying to make sure that they're as straight as possible. So a few things to point out. Bring the camera around over here. When you put in your axle, make sure that you don't put this axle too close to the body. And part of the reason is you're going to be wrapping string, and if you used paracord or something thicker, it's going to start to get thicker as it winds up, and it's going to hit the body of the car. So fishing line is going to let you get a lot more wraps around that axle without hitting the body of the car itself. When I attach the wheels, one of the things I recognized is if I were to put the screw eyes here, I was afraid the car might tip down a little bit, and I wanted more distance. So I cut more wood blocks, glued them under the car, and just extended it out a little bit further from the body. This could go quite a bit further out if you want to make sure that you're not going to have this axle hitting up against the body. Once you have these bottom wood blocks glued into place, then you're going to want to be able to put in those eye hooks. You'll notice, if you can see it in the video, there's an X on the back of that wood block. What I did is I just drew a line from corner to corner on the back. That showed me where the middle was, and then we screwed that eye hook right in on both sides. Once you have those in place, you need to now make your axle. When you make this axle, you want to slip it through the eye hooks and make sure when you cut it, it is much wider than your car. You're going to want room to work, so that this axle is this wide. It's a solid 1.5 inches or so wider than the car on both sides. So make sure you give yourself enough room, and again, we'll talk about that in a second about why that's so important. So once you have the axle cut down, now in this case, I used bolt cutters because we had them in order to cut it. I'm sure a pair of pliers, there's maybe another way to cut through it. You're gonna have to come up with a way to cut that. So we used bolt cutters to cut the axle itself. Once you have your axle, you're gonna need a way to attach string to that axle, and simply tying it on there is probably not gonna be tight enough. So one solution I came up with, I simply took a zip tie, wrapped it around the axle, and made it as tight as I possibly could on that axle. Even that still slipped a little bit on the axle. So using the hot glue gun, I just added extra glue all the way around to hold that zip tie in place. Once I have that, that's gonna allow me to put a loop of fishing line around it and give it something to hold on to when you twist and hold the line onto the axle itself. So let's talk about the wheels. So if you choose to use CDs the way that we used, one of the challenges you're gonna find is that the hole in the middle of the CD is much bigger than the axle. So how do you attach a rod that's thin like this to an axle if it's wobbling around? One idea I had is maybe taking a piece of cardboard, just cutting a round piece of cardboard and gluing it on here. Once you've glued it in place, you can flip it over, find the middle, poke a hole, and that's where your axle would go through. If you have Pinewood Derby cars, this sounds crazy, but these wheels are from a Pinewood Derby car. You get them in Cub Scouts. If you still have your old car, you could probably pull it off and use them. But you can buy these online. They're not very expensive. What's nice about using these is it was very easy to put glue, use a hot glue gun, I'll put the CD down here so you can see it. So pan down, put some glue on the wheel, and it was really easy to glue that wheel directly on and kind of find the center as much as possible. Once that was done, that made it really easy in order to put your axle through. Make sure your axle can fit through that hole, and if not, you may need to drill a hole in it a little bit just to make it hold in place. But if you've done it this way, it's the best way I could come up with to make sure that you had a good center on your wheel and something that would be really stable. I've already said, check to make sure it fits through. All right, so let's talk about attaching the wheels to the back axle. You're gonna wanna put the axle in. So you've got your axle at this point with the zip tie and the glue. You're gonna need to feed it through the eye holes on both sides so that now you can start to put the glue on. If you try to glue these wheels before you put it through the screw eyes, you're not gonna be able to get it in. So I suggest once you've glued your wheels and you know how you're gonna attach them to your axle, just pre-assemble everything. Put your axle in, feed it through the eye hooks, put a couple beads on both sides, and now's a good time to show you why. These beads are gonna keep this axle, if it slips back and forth, it makes sure that these wheels don't hit the body of the car and slow it down. So the beads help keep that distance on both sides. So I said you may need anywhere from 4 to 12. That's just the more beads you need to keep those wheels away from the body. So put your axle in, put your beads on, slip the wheels on, and make sure that there is still room on both sides of your wheels that the axle sticks through. And the reason is eventually, once you know that everything looks right, you're gonna use your hot glue gun and put a ton of glue right here on that axle and up against that wheel and hold it into place. One thing I would suggest that once you do your first wheel and glue it, just give it a spin and try to make sure that your wheel, bring the camera around here to the side, make sure that your wheel is running as straight as you can. You can see there's a little wobble. While it's drying, just try to keep it straight. If you look at this wheel over here, on this side, I didn't do quite as good of a job, and you can see the wobble. The reason it's important, the more straight it is, the less wobble you're gonna get shaking the car, but it also, you don't want this car to start turning left or right, or it's not gonna go as far if it ends up making a big curve off to the side. Okay, So let's talk about the front wheels. Now you do have two options here. If you want, and I'm going to show you an old car that we first built, rather than using the back, you're attaching your string to the axle. So we thought, well, we don't need this whole setup on the front because the front doesn't have string tied to it. So maybe instead we just decided we would attach the wheels using a nail. The problem with this idea is it is very hard to get those nails perfectly straight, which lets the wheel turn a little bit, and the car just kept turning really hard left, and it was very hard to adjust. So you had a car that you would go far, but it would just turn, so you're not getting the distance. So I came up with this idea from the first car. If you come back here to the one we've been showing you how to build, that's why we designed this, so that you have a way to make an adjustment. Take a bunch of craft sticks, glue them together just to give a little bit more support, drill a hole through the front of it. It's big enough for that screw to go through. This craft stick is not glued to these. You're taking this craft stick and this one, drill a hole through them, put a screw through with a washer on both sides and the nut, and what that allows is now you have the ability, if you test this car and it's turning too far left or right, you're gonna have the option to kind of make small adjustments and straighten it out and then tighten that nut down so that you know your car is now going straight. You can see once I had the craft stick, same thing we did on the back. We glued the two wood blocks, we put in the eye hooks, the axle, the beads, the wheels, everything's the same, except you don't need that zip tie because you don't have to attach fishing line to it. So at this point, that car is now done. The next thing you have to do is you're gonna have to find a really strong weight or heavy weight that's gonna be able to pull this. That small axle just takes a lot of pressure and a lot of weight to get it spinning and get your car moving. So what can you use for weights? Now this is ridiculous, but I'll show you. This is what we ended up using the first time. This is a tungsten cube. I have no idea why my son had it. I am not suggesting you try to buy one. It weighs, but I'm telling you because it weighs about 11 ounces. But when I looked on Amazon, they're nearly $40. I don't think you're gonna probably wanna spend that much money on a cube just for this car. They are super cool. It's amazing how heavy it is. But the point is, even that wasn't enough. He found a cast iron lobster, which we zip tied the two things together, and we used the zip ties to attach the string. So what can you do instead of this? I think you could probably find fishing weights, either at a local fishing shop or online. The fishing weights, you're gonna need probably 20 ounces worth of weight at a minimum. Fishing weights, you can find them as 10 ounces. You might be able to find heavier. Whatever you use, if you had to, you could probably take a bag, fill it with rocks or fill it with pennies or fill it with quarters and tape it really tight. Again, you want to tape it tight so that when it falls here, move the camera over, so when it falls, it's not hitting the sides as it goes down. So whatever that weight is, try to make it as compact as possible. Don't let it hit the edge, and try to keep it as short as you can. If you start putting something like, let's say you used a soda can and you filled it with rocks, well, that can's gonna hang way down here, which means when it starts to fall, it's gonna hit the ground sooner than if it was short. And that extra distance is gonna let your car go even further. So once you've figured out what your weight is, take a piece of fishing line, run it from your weight to the pulley and back down again, and make sure you have enough line. At the end, you're gonna tie a loop on your fishing line, run your loop through the pulley. There it goes. So you don't have to be exact, they'll get the idea. But you're gonna run your loop through, back up. You're gonna run the loop down. I'm gonna set the weight here in the middle. I'm just gonna take my loop, put it where that fishing, where the zip tie is. Make sure you get in close just so you can see how the loop is going around the tie. And then you're just gonna start twisting your axle. Is that clear? Can you see that? Mm-hmm. You're just gonna keep twisting it, twist, twist, twist. As it starts to get tight, then you're probably gonna have to start manually lifting your weight and just keep twisting this axle Try to keep it as centered as you can. I didn't do a good job here on this one, but you're just gonna wrap it until your weight is all the way to the top. So I'm gonna cut the video here. I'm gonna go ahead and set it up and I'll show you how the car runs. All right, so we've now wrapped the string around the zip tie, run it up through the pulley, and the weight is now suspended up tall. Now, this car, these dowels are about 2 feet tall. On the original car, I'd say they were probably closer to 3 feet tall, which is how we got even more distance. So the taller those dowels, the further your car is going to go. So I've got this, I think, about as straight as it's gonna go for here. Let's give it a test, let's see how far. Now the rules say that you're not allowed to propel the car, so I'm simply gonna let go, and this is where you need that weight to really get it moving. You can see it's not about speed, it's just about slowly pulling. So it's about, the weight's about halfway. So this hull's about, I'm gonna say this hull's about 20 feet long. Looks like the weight got about halfway, so you'd easily get 40 feet with dowels that are 2 feet. Make longer dowels, you're gonna get even further. So good luck with your project.